Hello, everybody. Thank you for letting me tell you a story today. The title of the story is called Firefight in Idaho, and that's why I'm wearing this hard hat because firefighters wear hard hats. So, between college semesters, I applied for a position with the United States Department of Forestry as a firefighter, and I was thrilled when they accepted me. They stationed me at the top of Grizzly Mountain, which is in the Mendocino National Forest, about 30 miles away from the nearest town, which was Covelo, where the headquarters were. I got to the fire station and they gave me my uniform, which, by the way, is made out of a material called Nomex, and it's the color green like my pants. If it gets too close to a fire, it turns white. So that means basically the fire is too close, or you're too close to the fire, and you better back off and get away from the fire. Anyway, it was kind of a boring job. There wasn't a lot to do. There wasn't very many fires. There was one fire in Mendocino National Forest when I was there. And primarily that's because there's less visitors. It's the only national forest in the country that doesn't have a major freeway going through it. Therefore, there's less people and less fires, which is great. So in the morning, basically, we'd get up and we'd do our exercises and have breakfast, and then we'd go out and clear out brush and then practice making fuel breaks. Now, fuel breaks or fire lines is another way of saying it. Is when you take all the vegetation off the forest floor to get down to dirt, because dirt doesn't burn. So when you're out in the fire, out in the forests fighting fires, you want to get to the point where the fire is going to stop at that break, and then you're good to go. So in order to do that, you get like 6 firefighters in a row, and they all line up shoulder to shoulder. Each one has a specialized tool. So there's a thing called a Pulaski, there's a thing called a McLeod, and then there's a shovel and a few others. But the Pulaski is like an axe on one side and a big scraper on the other. The McLeod is like a big rake on one side and a big hoe on the other side. And then, of course, you know what a shovel is. So basically, you get 6 people in a row, 6 firefighters in a row, and the first one in line usually has a Pulaski. The first one or two usually have a Pulaski because they're the heaviest tools. And you do 1 or 2 scrapes, right? And then you move to the right. So the next person moves to the right with you. They do 1 or 2 scrapes on the same spot. And then everybody moves to the right again. The third person, 1 or 2 scrapes with either the shovel or the McLeod, whatever it is, and they move on down the line. So by the time you get to the 6th person, that spot is bare down to the dirt. And you have a nice 4 or 5, 3 or 4 foot path of plain dirt along the fire line. And that's going to stop the fire unless there's a lot of wind. So it was really an effective means, very efficient means of doing it. So now I told you there was one fire that really got our adrenaline going, and it was only a couple acres big, and it was close enough to the road to where I could take a hose. My fire chief gave me a hose, and the other guys got their tools out, and they were doing the fire line, so I'm taking the hose, and I'm just like spraying the fire, just spraying in the middle of a fire, getting it wet, putting it out, and the fire chief got mad at me. He comes and he grabbed the hose, and he's like, "That's not how you do it." And he takes it down. He comes like this far from the ground. He's doing this with the hose, getting it all wet right on the fire edge. And so he starts to run, really running along the edge of the fire, putting out the edge of the fire. And I didn't know what I was doing, but it really made a lot of sense. You have to go fast. You have to go really fast, otherwise those fires really explode. So that was my training for the big firefight in Idaho, which happened a few weeks later. So it was early in the morning, about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. I was sound asleep, and all of a sudden the radio blares out, "Grizzly Mountain Fire Crew, come to Covelo immediately!" Boom. So, oh my gosh, so we all got there were about 6 of us. We all got our rucksacks, threw them in the truck, and boom, we were down to Covelo in no time at all. Shortly after that, a big 4-engine prop plane came in and took us all the way up to Boise, Idaho. From Boise, Idaho, we took a helicopter into the primitive forests in northern Idaho, through which the Snake River flows. So we land on the river, right next to the river, where we had our base camp. And we were too late that day to go up and fight the fire, which was great. So we got to go to the supply place, and they gave us our tool belt with our water and our fire blanket. Fire blanket is you drape it over yourself in case you get overrun by fire, and hopefully you survive. And they gave us a sleeping bag, and I got my tool too, my shovel. I had a shovel. And so that night, like I said, we were unable to go to the fire, but we were sitting down looking at the side of the mountain, and it was incredible. I mean, it was just ablaze. The whole thing, very, very expansive, this mountainside, right? fire and big red spots of coals burning, and just, I mean, it was really beautiful. Better than any firework. But I'm telling you, it was also very ominous because the next morning is when we went up to the top of the mountain. A helicopter flew us up to the top and dropped us off and said, you guys are to make a fire line all the way down the mountain along the edge of the fire. So, okay, great. So we get down there. There's one crew above us, there's us in the middle, and one crew below us. So we're on the fire line, and I'm telling you, we were right on the fire line. The fire was just raging up there, and the trees were falling, and branches were dropping, and ashes were flying all over the place, and embers were flying all over the place, and it was so loud. It was as loud as 3 trains coming by your house at the same time. It was just incredible. You couldn't hear a thing. So we're really working. The Pulaski's going at it. The McLeod's going at it. We're dig, step, dig, step, dig, step. Really just going as fast as we can to make this fire line on the edge of this fire. And I'm telling you, it was so hot. My Nomex pants had white spots all over them. I mean, that's how hot it was. But the thing was, we were doing the fire line. Well, so were the guys up above us. And when they were doing the fire line, they were loosing all kinds of rocks and things. And so the rocks were falling down and rolling down. It was very steep terrain, and they were coming down very close to us, in front of us, behind us. And I actually had to reach up one time. There was one rock that was up in the air, and I hit it with my shovel and knocked it down. And I actually got a commendation for that because I was protecting the crew below us. But it was very, very scary. We were all getting really, really tired, and this crew below us decided to take a breather. So they stopped, and they were just, well, I looked at them, and they were chatting, and they're, smiling and moving their head up and down and just being animated, while they were taking their breather. And all of a sudden, I heard a big crack in the middle of the fire out here. Big crack. And then we look up, and this tree just falls down and hits the ground and breaks into pieces. One of the pieces was about a 20-foot piece of log, of the tree stump, right? Completely enveloped in flames. And it starts rolling down the hill, and it's getting momentum. At every second it's going, and it's crashing over trees, and it's crashing through bushes, and it's hitting these boulders and bouncing up in the air and falling back down and rolling down the mountain, really rolling down the mountain, and it's headed straight to the crew below us, who don't know it's coming because they're sitting there chatting away. Well, we're yelling at them, hey, hey, and they don't hear us. The fire's too loud. They don't hear a dang thing. We're, hey! So finally I whistle, and it pierced the air. The whistle was a very sharp whistle. It pierced the air, and we got their attention. They looked up at us, and we pointed at the log, and they looked at it, and they ran out of the way just in time, and that log just poured over that path that they were on. I mean, it would have creamed them. It went right where they were. 6 people's lives would have been snuffed out just like that had they not seen that log or had they not heard that whistle. So, man, it was intense. I'm telling you, at the end of that first day, I was down at the base camp sitting there watching the water, just being pretty darn reflective, I mean, I almost got killed. Dang boulders were down there. I could have got killed or hurt. I could have got burned alive. Those 6 people, I saved 6 people's lives. I'm thinking to myself, what the heck am I doing here? Anyway, after a good pep talk by my boss, I went back up the hill the next day until it was time to mop up, which was a few days later. Finally got the fire under control, and all we had to do was mop up, which means the fire's out, but there's lots of little smoldery spots here and there, so you got to go up and pour water on them and move them with a shovel and stuff and try to get them out. Well, me and 3 other guys, we were on the edge of the fire of the burn area. Okay, just putting out little things. And then my buddy Martin, who was part of our crew from Mendocino, was deep into the burn area. And what he was doing was looking for fires at the base of trees. Because you don't see those, and they work on the tree, and soon they'll crack. The tree will, the base will crack, and then the tree will fall, and either start a new fire, or might fall on somebody, hurt them, or whatever. So he's out there doing this stuff, and all of a sudden we hear this massive crack. And a tree was falling, and we looked up there, and it was that great big tree, and it was falling right toward Martin. He didn't know where it was. He didn't see it. So we're like, Martin, run, run! So he drops his stuff, and he starts running down this hill, very steep terrain, right? And he's running as fast as he can, and he's jumping over trees, and he's jumping over burnt logs. He's jumping over rocks. He's just going, and we're going, come on, Martin, come on, go! Go, Martin, go! And boom, it hits the ground. All this dust and everything comes up. And then Martin, he's sitting there, at the end of the tree. And he's breathing. And we see that he's okay. We're like, yeah! Way to go, Martin! Our brother, he made it. Well, we all made it. We all made it. We got a few scratches here and there, but we all made it, and we finally got back to California, back to Mendocino National Forest, and we couldn't wait for the next fire and the next adrenaline rush. Thank you.